Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's session. Just give me a second and I'll just switch on my camera as well. So, hi, everyone, and welcome and thank you for joining us today. This session is part of our Power Hour series, where we focus on real practical challenges institutions are facing around document accessibility, not just from a tool or a compliance standpoint, but from a strategy and workflow perspective as well. So if you joined us in earlier sessions, we've spent time looking at document remediation in a more hands-on way, how to handle documents, how to work with APIs, how to use our services, how to scale structured content, and how to improve overall efficiency at the execution level. But today we are taking a step back and looking at the bigger picture. We are going to talk about how to actually design the right workflow for accessibility at scale, whether that's through APIs, platforms, the tools that you're using, or services, and more importantly, how institutions should be thinking about this from a management and strategy standpoint. So this session is less about features and more about how to make the right decisions, what approach works best for which type of content, how to prioritize, how to structure accessibility effort across teams. So glad to have you all here. And as always, feel free to drop your questions and share your challenges in the chat as we move along. So a few housekeeping items. So before we start, closed captions are available. We've enabled them, and you can also toggle them through from your toolbar. We are also recording today's webinar, and everyone will receive a recording of today's session along with the presentation. And free to type your questions in the chat or Q&A section on Zoom at any time. We'll address them during the Q&A segment towards the end. And the last 10 to 15 minutes of the session would be around the questions. And if we don't get to all the questions in the end, we'll follow up with the FAQ document with the answer so that no one misses out on the answers. So let me quickly walk you through today's agenda. We'll start with accessibility challenges at scale, why this problem becomes complex as institutions grow. Then we look at why one approach doesn't work for everything, especially with the different types of documents and the volumes. And from there, we'll break into platforms, APIs, and services and how to fit into an overall strategy. We'll also cover when to choose each workflow based on your setup and needs. And I'll then share what's actually going on in practice across institutions. And we'll wrap up with a quick walkthrough, bringing it all together and showing how we support, or rather we can support your initiatives as well. So about us, and if you are meeting us for the first time, so we are an award-winning continual engine. We are an award-winning organization, an AI-powered digital accessibility service provider. We work with organizations globally to make sure digital content is accessible at scale without slowing the teams down. Our offerings span across the full accessibility lifecycle. That includes website accessibility, accessibility audits and remediation, document remediation, accessible ebooks, EPUBs, video captioning, audio descriptions, everything that is related to that is on digitally present, we can make those content accessible. And at the center of this ecosystem is PrEP, our PDF and document remediation platform. It's a simple platform built to accelerate document accessibility. It combines proprietary AI with human expertise to make sure that the throughput of document accessibility can be increased. So, hi everyone. I'm Shubham. I'm the client excellence lead at Continual Engine, and my role basically sits right between the product, services, and clients. So, what we'll be sharing today comes directly from what we see universities and accessibility teams that are struggling with and how they're solving their problems. So, talking about the real challenge, and I want to start with something we are hearing almost across universally across all institutions right now. So, at this point, no one is really debating whether accessibility matters anymore or not. That part is settled, especially with the updates around Title II of the ADA, where digital content, including PDFs, course material, is clearly being treated as a part of institutions' public-facing obligation. So the conversation has shifted. The real challenge is now much more operational and much more technical. Because when you look at Title II, it's really requiring, and it's not just compliance at the document level, it requires institutions to take a program-wide approach to accessibility, ensuring all digital content consistently meets standards like WCAG, with a growing shift towards WCAG 2.2 as well that we're seeing in recent times. And more importantly, it emphasizes the need for a structured and ongoing process where accessibility is not a one-time effort, but something that is maintained, monitored, and integrated into content workflows over time. So what institutions are being evaluated on, or what we think that they will be evaluated on in the future, is whether you have a defined remediation workflow or not, whether there is prioritization logic that is tied to the user impact, whether there is ongoing monitoring and governance for the current document repositories that you have, and whether accessibility is embedded into the content creation pipelines and not just retrofitted after the fact. So it's figuring out, and basically the main question is how can you actually make accessibility work at scale in a way that is defensible, measurable, and sustainable. So these are the three main pillars that institutions should be focusing on right now. And all of this should be done without breaking the internal workflows, overloading the existing teams, or creating new bottlenecks in the approaches. And in a quick summary, what the new model should look like is, and if we all can take this into account, that the model that institutions need to look very different from what they were working on a few years ago. So the new model should, of course, be system driven, not person driven. Accessibility cannot depend on a small central team. It needs to be embedded into workflows and systems. So LMS uploads, document creations, document repositories, or publishing pipelines. A part of accessibility should be there. Hybrid in execution. So automation should handle structure, but there should be a manual oversight for complex content. It should be distributed but governed. So departments and faculties should also be involved when making content accessible, but within a framework that enforces consistency and prioritize based on impact. So not all documents are equal. Of course, institutions need to align remediation efforts with their student access or public visibility or also regulatory exposure. And at the end, the fifth most strategically important point is it should be continuously monitored. So accessibility is not a one-time project. It requires ongoing auditing, reporting, and those consistent feedback loops. But looking at from a bigger picture and also what was recently in the news is what the Title II extension really means for institutions right now. Because this is influencing how a lot of institutions are thinking right now. So at a surface level, it feels like additional time has been given. But what we are seeing in practice, or what we want to see in practice, is that the time is actually being used to reassess your approach. Institutions are realizing that trying to manually remediate everything or trying to centralize everything to one team is not going to hold up over time. So instead of rushing into remediation, many are stepping back and asking for a more foundational approach. So we are seeing questions like, do we actually know what content we have? Do we know which documents matter the most? That's where prioritization comes in. And do we have a way to track progress over time? So these are three main questions teams should be asking themselves to make sure their strategies are aligned with the new guidelines to have a successful accessibility goal of making documents accessible. And we've seen cases in the past, in recent past, very recent past, where teams have paused active remediation work, not because they are deprioritizing accessibility, but because they've realized that they need to fix process before the output. And once they did that, everything becomes much more manageable. And that's what really this extension is all about. It's an opportunity for your teams to move from a reactive mindset to a structured programmatic approach. So, talking about the changing landscape, the three major shifts that are coming or that we are seeing. So, if you look at how accessibility was handled even a few years ago, it was mostly reactive. A request would come in, a document would be fixed, maybe a few things would cleaned up proactively, but there wasn't a really system behind it. And that approach doesn't really holds up anymore. So what changed it's not just the expectation, but the scale and complexity of the problem as well. So what we'd worked with institutions where, once they actually started auditing their content, they realized the volume was far beyond what they initially expected. Not just those thousands of documents, but in some cases, hundreds of thousands spread across their websites, LMS platforms, shared drives, departmental repositories. And it's not just volumes that they have to deal with, it's also the type of content. So you're not just dealing with clean text-based PDFs, but you're dealing with scanned documents, reports with layered tables, course material with embedded visuals, complex STEM documents. So each and every gambit of documents, complex documents, you have scattered around different document repositories. So this is where accessibility process should be clearly identified. And one example that comes to mind is a business school where a large portion of content was made up of case-based materials. So on the surface, these looks like standard PDFs, but once you open them, they had a mix of chart, financial tables, annotations, multi-column layouts. And it was something that couldn't just be handled with a simple approach. That's where you have to re-engineer the process. And that's the exact shift that we're really seeing nowadays. Accessibility is no longer a one size fits all problem. It's a workflow problem. So from a trend perspective, there are a few clear shifts that's happening. Institutions are moving away from fully manual remediation models. One team does everything approaches and reactive request based approach, and they're moving towards a hybrid based models, which includes automation plus human validation, a distributed ownership with centralized governance, and integration of accessibility into upstream cycles, upstream systems like CMS or your LMS platforms. And with a strong focus on document inventory and classification, a risk-based prioritization, and also audit plus remediation combined workflows. So the core challenge and at the center of all of this is a very real tension. So on one side, you have accuracy and compliance, and on the other side, you have scale. If you rely entirely on a manual process, you can get very high quality results, but it becomes extremely difficult to keep up with volume, especially when new content is constantly being created. And if you rely on automation, you can move faster, but you risk missing nuances, especially in more complex documents. So what most institutions eventually realize is that it's not an either or decision. So it's figuring out where automation makes sense and where human intervention is needed and necessary. And we've seen that teams that started out fully manual and quickly became overwhelmed. We've also seen teams try to automate everything, then spend a lot of time going back to fix the issues that automation couldn't alone handle. So the most effective approach tends to land somewhere in between. And one of the biggest mindset shifts that needs to happen is around prioritization. A common instinct for a lot of our teams is to try and fix everything at once. But in practice, that's where most efforts fail. What works best is to start thinking in layers. So there are certain documents that carry more weight than others. So public facing materials, document tied to admissions or financial aid or policy documents, they tend to carry higher visibility and higher risk. And then you have instructoral content. So course material, lecture notes, assignment. These are critical from a student perspective, but also vary widely in complexity. And then there are archival content, older documents that you may not need to actively or may not are being actively used by a lot of teams, but they are existing within your ecosystem. So what we've seen work well when institutions start aligning their efforts around impact rather than volume. And in one case, a team realized that relatively a small subset of the documents accounted for a large portion of student interactions. That's where the focus should be. So now this brings us to one of the most important discussions and decisions institutions have to make is, do you centralize accessibility or do you distribute it? So both approaches have their advantages and both have real-time limitations. If you fully centralized, so in a fully centralized model, everything flows through one team. This provides consistency and control, but it also creates bottleneck. We've seen situations where central teams became overwhelmed and turnaround times started impacting other workflows as well. So in some cases, departments stopped submitting the documents altogether because the process felt too slow. On the other end of the spectrum, a fully distributed model gives department autonomy. So it scales better in terms of volume, but it introduces inconsistency as well. So different teams use different approaches and with and without, or rather without clear guardrails, the quality of output can vary significantly. So what we are seeing more and more is a shift toward a hybrid approach. So in this model, there's a clear central team, but their role changes. Instead of doing all the work, they focus on defining standards, setting up workflows, and handling more complex cases. Departments are enabled to handle simpler documents on their own using a structured tool and process. And when something falls out of their scope, it gets escalated. And we've seen this work particularly well in environments where platforms like Prep are used to provide a consistent interface. So talking about, again, that hybrid model, what actually works in practice is, so in this model, the central team plays a very different role than before. So they're not trying to remediate every document themselves. Instead, they focus on defining standards like WCAG or PDF UA compliance, making sure there's consistency across institutions. They also provide tools for trainings, tools to use, tools to train on, and oversight and step in whenever documents become more complex or of high risk. On the other side, we have departments which can be enabled to handle the majority of the day-to-day work. So they upload documents, remediate simpler files, and follow a structured workflow. So this allows accessibility to scale without everything becoming dependent on one single team. And then when you can have an escalation layer, that's what's critical. So this is where more complex content goes, like STEM content, heavy documents, scanned PDFs, or high risk, high compliance reports. So that's where accuracy really matters. So these require either expert review or specialized handling. And when this model is implemented correctly, the impact is really significant. So talking about choosing the right workflow, APIs versus platform versus services. So these three we've discussed individually in our previous webinar. So if you'd like to know more about individually these workflows, feel free to reach out to us. But this is where strategy becomes really practical. So a lot of conversations tend to frame this as a choice, API versus platform or tool versus service. But in reality, it's really about choosing just one. It's about understanding how each fits into your broader ecosystem. So when we talk about APIs, we are really talking about embedding accessibility into existing systems. So this is most relevant in environments where documents are being generated or uploaded at scale. So for example, institutions that want accessibility checks to happen automatically as a part of their LMS upload process, that's where the APIs can be fit in. So these are best for high volume ingestion where automated tagging and real-time checks are required. The kind of documents that works well with APIs are your standard PDFs, where they follow a similar kind of a structure, same structure, which are text heavy or have simple tables or simple list. So those kind of documents works really well. And the processes where you can integrate the APIs where the documents are being added day in, day out. So platforms or tools, on the other hand, are where most day-to-day work happens. So this is where teams upload documents, reviews outputs, and make adjustments and tracks progress. So it provides structure and visibility, especially when multiple departments are involved. So this platform, or when you have to use a tool, it's best for departmental remediation, where you can also maybe include a faculty self-service model, and where you would like to have a centralized tracking of how the progress or how documents are being remediated by different departments. The kind of documents it works best with are course materials, your medium complexity documents, which will be your majority documents that you're working with. So administrative docs, some simple form documents, a good quality scan document, medium complexity STEM document. So those would be best for a tool that you're working with. Uh, and then the faculties that are interacting with these kind of documents on a daily basis would need to have or should be having an access to a tool where they can make this content accessible. And then there are services. So services become critical when the documents are too complex, too time sensitive, or too high of a risk to handle internally. So this could be the library documents that were created a century ago, 50 years ago. So those kind of scanned documents, or documents that have a really heavy STEM content, complex visuals, all of that. That is what services are best for. And this is where, again, an important question here you might have to ask yourself is if you have the budget for it or not. So that's where services also can have a slight impact on your budget. And you also have to keep a check if not everything goes out to be remediated. Majority should be done inside the remediation, inside the institutes or by the faculties or teams. Only a small portion should be outsourced. That's where the centralized teams also need to have a check-in process to make sure that they have a control on what's being outsourced and what's being done in-house. So in quick summary, APIs handle really high volumes, system level automation for simple text heavy documents. Platforms manage structured workflows and collaboration for medium complexity documents. And services steps in for complex or compliance assurance for those super complex documents. And the effectiveness comes from how well these are aligned with each other, managed by the central team, and not choosing one over the other. So now talking about how continual engine can help your goals is, as we do provide all these three separately, what we can do, have been doing in the past is creating a centralized platform for your teams to access all of that under one roof. So that's where what our teams can come in, create a simple platform that can have a single sign on as well. So any of your team members can simply log into this platform and see the options available to them. The options can be all four or all three or just three, two, one, depending on what your needs are. So you can have an API interface where you simply click on this option, the API option, and you simply have to upload a document and download a document. So it can be for your simple documents. So it can be this AI powered remediation. Then you can have a tool option, the prep tool option, which allows you to do the work in-house for all your faculties. And then what we also provide is an option for you to work or outsource documents to us for remediation. Now, this can be managed by this platform itself. So one platform will allow you to do the work in-house, outsource documents whenever needed for remediation, and also provide an API interface for you to quickly tag your document for those bulk tagging for simple documents. And what at a leadership level, the conversation really needs to shift away from tools and towards systems. So the most important question are not what tools are we using. It's now becoming, do we have a visibility into our document accessibility ecosystem? Are we prioritizing the right content? Are we enabling teams of creating a friction? Do we have a process that can scale over time? Because accessibility at this point is not a project with an end date, it's an ongoing capability. And what I'll do is I'll take a quick pause for any questions and also show you the platforms uh, that we have. So once you or your teams would log into this platform, so if, let's say, you click on the self-remediation platform, which is the prep tool, you will simply be redirected to the prep tool where you can do the work in-house, upload the remediation, and quickly do the work and export as needed. So this is an option that we provide in this platform itself. And the prep demo we've shown you before. If you need a custom demo for your teams, let us know. We can schedule a demo with your teams as well. Uh, but that's the prep tool platform. If a user wants to use the API, they can quickly click on the left bottom platform and they will be redirected to the auto tag platform where they will simply have to upload a PDF and they'll get a remediated PDF back. It's an auto tag PDF. This doesn't usually mean it's 100% compliant, but the auto tagging has been done. So this is why we recommend it to be for simple document or text heavy documents. Then you have two other options, similar but different options. So one is a fee-based remediation service where you can outsource the documents to us for remediation. And you can simply do that. So, and this can be for the teams. If you have different budgets for different departments, this is the option you can use. You can simply upload a document and then you can pay as you go. Once we've done the remediation, you can pay then as well. And then on a similar line, we can also have an option if you have a centralized budget. You can purchase some credits from us in advance, and that can also can be embedded into this platform. And then you can simply outsource the document to us for remediation. We'll do the work without paying for it. That's already been done. You'll always have a track of how many credits are left, how many have you used. So what we are aiming or what we are building is a simple platform to solve all your PDF accessibility platforms. Now, this platform also has integration capabilities. It can be integrated with your LMSs, CMSs. So each document, any document can be imported from your CMS LMS account to here and selected and can go its desired route, either an API or prep tool, depending on the complexity, and can be sent back to where it came from without going elsewhere. So everything can happen under one roof And then in future, what we are also trying to do is integrating it with our PDF audit tool, which can audit your websites and repositories as well. So it can highlight all the documents that are there, which are inaccessible, can simply be imported here, remediated, and sent back to the same place where they came from. So this model and this setup is basically built with the complex workflows in mind to make sure that it can be simplified, that any user joins in, they have resources and a simple onboarding step to make sure their documents are accessible. So to wrap this up, I want to leave with one key idea is accessibility at scale is not about trying to do everything at once. It's about making deliberate choices, choosing what to prioritize, choosing how to structure workflows, and choosing where to apply automation versus expertise. So the institutions that are making progress are not necessarily the ones with most resources or most budgets. They are the ones with the most clearest approach. We'll open the floor for any questions that you have. If you would be interested in seeing this platform live or any of the workflows live, please reach out to us. We can schedule a dedicated session for your teams and talk more about how it can be best suited for needs. We have a question: what does pricing look like? So please reach out to us. My contact details should be now on screen, and we can discuss the pricing over email. And I will paste my email in the chat as well so that you all have quick access. But all the pricing informations can be provided over email. So please reach out to us and we can support your needs.
Shubham, we have a question on.
Yes, we can. So we have a question. Could you provide a bit more information about the AI-powered remediation workflow? The fact that it can only be text only seems limiting for higher education where you have documents of very different types. That's true. This platform does not limit you to upload any PDF. What we are trying to say is it works, or the auto tagging is super accurate with your complex or with your simple PDFs. It can remediate medium complex PDFs as well, but the accuracy will not be as high as a simple PDF or a text-based PDF. And if your PDFs have images as well in them, the alt text can also be created automatically with our AI. So that's also there, making sure we are addressing that use case as well. So we have another question for automated AI processing. Is there a confidence score on how well the PDFs has been remediated or an accessibility score? Yes, we have a checker API as well, or an accessibility checker API that can also be integrated with this platform. So you can have a checker report as well for this platform or for any PDF within a score, and then you can take the appropriate decision. So we have another question: how long to set up the process to test out on campus? So to testing these workflows, we can set you up right away. Within 2-3 days, we can set up the environment for you where you can test the workflows individually to make sure that it's best suited for your documents. Right. Yes, we have an API documentation that we can share with you. It's well documented. It has how you can set it up, how you can integrate it. Uh, it does not have a few key information that we provide once we are at that stage. But yeah, you will have all the documentation in the API documentation that we would share. So we have another question. Can you touch on bulk processing a little more? How many can it remediate per month, etc.? So we don't really have a limit. We customize this volume or scale based on your client's needs or client's demand. So if they're looking at, remediating a lot of documents in a day, in a week, so we scale accordingly. So there's no such limit to start with or to end with. It's basically dependent on your needs, what kind of volumes you have, and we can scale accordingly. There are, of course, different costs involved with a smaller setup, with a larger setup. But yeah, we can scale according to your needs. If you want to upload multiple documents, we can do that as well. And if I believe some of the users or attendees here are new, so we have a templatization option as well, which can where we create templates for your similar structured documents, where again, a lot of hundreds of thousands of documents can be remediated at once with 100% compliance as well. So that's another added feature that you flows for your every year and you have a really large backlog of. So your transcripts can also be templatized and remediated at once with our tools and processes. Right. And we are always increasing the automation of our platform. So Prep Tool, if you've used it a year ago and if you're using it now, you must be seeing significant improvement in the automation, auto tagging, list table, everything detected is much more accurate now. So we have a constant feedback loop with our clients, understanding their pain points and making sure our systems and models are equipped to give the best output. And that's one way that we want to grow, is making sure we are changing and improving over time.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But if you have any other questions as well, which might not be relevant to what we've seen today, but related to accessibility, please feel free to ask that as well. We have a question for the AI-based solution. Is my PDF being used for further training purpose? How is my content kept secure or private? That's a great question and a very, very frequent question that we are being asked. So we don't train our models on any of our client documents that you are uploading. We train our models on documents that are openly sourced or created elsewhere or publicly available. And that's what we train our on. There is no live training that happens on the document that you upload. We are happy to share that documentation, that confirmation that just states what I just said. And also happy to sign any documentation that you would need as an assurance. You do have a few minutes with us as well. So happy to answer any questions that you have. If you have any specific questions about the prep tool, its capabilities, or the outsourcing process, please let us know. In the outsourcing process, when users are outsourcing documents, what we can also add is an approval layer for your admin accounts for your centralized teams. So what basically that means is whenever, as if I am a faculty, and if I want to outsource a document for remediation, it will first go to my organization admin. And only if they approve it, it will go to the prep team for further remediation. So we can also, or you can also keep a check on how much it's being outsourced. If the outsourcing for that document is needed or not, for a simple document, something that can be done in-house. So you can just decline that request and it won't come to us. So we have these approval layers to make sure that your budgets are also in check, and you have total oversight of what's being outsourced, what's being done in-house. And as I said, if you have similar structured documents, templates would be the way to go. Reach out to us to learn more about templates, what kind of documents can be templatized, how the process looks like. We'll be happy to share the resources of how that works. And then you can probably take a decision. But templates is one thing that most of our clients are picking up to use because that's what the need is for similar structured document to increase that accessibility score or your ally score for some of your clients who are using those platforms. So that's one of the best way to increase that score and provide more visibility to your management and a good accessibility percentage, making sure your efforts are leading to better results as well. If there are any more questions, we'll be happy to take them now, or you can, of course, reach out to us as well. You have our email in the chat. But please reach out to us, learn more about our solutions, each of these interfaces, workflows. Happy to uh, learn more about your use cases, your problem statements, and consulting on the best way to go. I believe we might have another question. So we have a question in terms of having someone manage things being sent to prep. What does an account of for this person looks like? I will manage that. I imagine that we might have someone in the position that will just send things out, but not necessarily know accessibility deeply, so don't need to access to remediation tools. Are there ways to a role where the person just serves through sending things off? Yes. So we also have a rule where you simply can enable a user to approve and reject the request. And let me just show you, and I hope my screen is still visible. So probably what you can do for a user is or create is, so here, remediation user service or service platform user profile. So this is the outsourcing platform where you can create new users. So, and this is the user access level that you will give for outsourcing documents. So here, you can just give them admin view option. So organization admin is where they'll see everything. Admin view is where they will just have that capability to approve or disapprove or decline. And then your documents will be outsourced or not, depending on what they think of. So we have that view. And thank you for asking that question. So if there aren't any more questions, we'll give you your time back. You will shortly hear from our team with the recording of the call and the presentation. Happy to answer your questions over email as well. If you'd like to schedule a demo, reach out to us to learn more about how prep works, how APIs work, how outsourcing works. We'll be happy to learn more about your needs and use cases. Looking forward to meeting you again in our next Power Hour series. Till then, take care and hope you have a great summer.